So this is the first week in our 4-week special series on foundations of mindfulness, or I think I even framed it as origins of mindfulness. And we could refer to it in all sorts of different ways. Those are just words, but that might give you a feeling of these are different kind of pillars that we can use in a mindfulness practice. We can apply that practice in so many different ways, so many different places in our life. I know I'm preaching to the choir at this point because you are all practitioners. But I also say that to say, I hope we can all keep being curious about what mindfulness is in our own experience and how it might impact the rest of our lives. So I'll say something briefly about the 4 foundations. We'll just work on the first foundation today, which is mindfulness of the body. And we can think of mindfulness as a kind of it's an open awareness that's not constrained by our kind of discursive thought or our judgments or our ideas about how things are. So in a way, we can think about it as our capacity to just experience things as they are. It's a really useful capacity to continue to develop our minds in for very practical purposes, for religious purposes, for purposes of managing our blood sugars, of course. So these 4 foundations, the first one is mindfulness of the body. The first one is our sense of our body. And of course, we practice this all the time in our sessions, but we'll take a particular focus on it today and why it's important. Second foundation, which we'll focus on next week, is sometimes translated as a mindfulness of feelings, but actually more accurate would be to say mindfulness of feeling tones. And I know a lot of you were there for one or the other of the different practices that we did on feeling tones, which feeling tones are a little more kind of fundamental than feelings. Feelings, we might be angry, we might be sad, we might be happy, big range of different feelings, and we describe them in different ways. Feeling tones are a little more simple. Feeling tones are more like negative or positive or neutral. So just our ability to bring it back down to that level, that's actually a core root of our practice. To be able to just say, hey, this feels bad. It's actually really that simple. That's what mindfulness of feeling is about. It's just to say, hey, this feels bad. Nothing more to it. Or this feels good. Or this just feels. So that's what that second foundation is about. The third foundation is mindfulness of our mental states or of our kind of conscious experience. And so that might include some more of these complex emotions, feelings. We might be feeling bitter, or we might be feeling joyous and celebratory. Some more of these complex emotions and patterns. So that we'll get into the third week. And then the final one is mindfulness of our frames of looking at the world. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But one frame that we often use in this practice is looking at the frames of what causes difficulty in our own minds, in our own experiences, noticing what changes are happening, and also noticing that it's not always up to us, and that we have this sense of how much control we always have, and how in charge we can be, and how much we want to manage the results that we get in our life, which is a good, healthy approach. And also this kind of perspective on life helps us see that sometimes it's not in our hands. So that's another angle that we'll work with in that 4th week. All right, that's most of the soapbox. I've framed it. I do want to say about mindfulness of body, I think, looking at who's here, we're all at least decently practiced in this. I know even just from these diabetes sangha sessions alone, I've seen so many of your faces many, many times. So a lot of this will be nothing new. But I'd love to just bring this extra perspective of why are we paying attention to our body? What's so magical about it? And sometimes we really have to wrestle and fight to pay attention to our body. I don't know about you all, but sometimes it feels like there's like this gravitational pull up into my head and then somewhere into outer space where my mind might exist. And it's even stronger when there's strong emotions coming up, or stressors, or things to think about, details, logistics. So why are we bringing it back down into the body? Part of what's going on, at least from a neuroscience perspective, is as we start to feel some uncomfortable feeling, a lot of the time our mind will then actually try to understand, why is that happening? And this can go both ways. It might first be our mind has a thought and we feel bad about it. Like I think about, my professor in this diabetes course who's, clearly doesn't have the right information anymore. And I'm like, I don't feel so good about that. And then I have this feeling in my body. And the feeling, my body, whether or not I realize it, my body actually creates a sensation, creates a feeling. That doesn't feel so good. So then my mind tries to justify it and says, yeah, that guy, he really doesn't know anything. And then here we go. There's a ping pong back and forth between our body and our mind. And this happens in all sorts of ways. I could have thought of an even more diabetes relevant example, but I think everybody looking around and seeing some knowing smiles gets the idea. We have this ping pong that happens between our body and our mind. And so when we can just come back to what's really happening in my body, what am I really feeling right now, we get a little bit less caught up in our mind, and we can orient ourselves in a way that's a little more healthy and helpful. So we can turn outward and see how we can be of service, or we can even turn inward and see how we can be of help to ourselves, but without being burdened by all of this crunchy, gravitational pulley type of thoughts about our diabetes professor. So I'm going to read a quote, which is actually a poem by Naira Wahid, and can use this as kind of a guide for our practice today. Practice itself will be very simple. So I hope this can flavor our practice a little bit. This poem is called 3. And again, it's by Naira Wahid. No might make them angry, but it will make you free. If no one has ever told you, your freedom is more important than their anger. And I said to my body softly, I want to be your friend. It took a long breath and replied, I have been waiting my whole life for this. If the ocean can calm itself, so can you. We are both salt, water mixed with air. So, if that is our flavor for today, let's turn towards a sitting practice. If you're comfortable and sitting doesn't work, of course, you can lay down. Feel free, if you prefer, you can turn your camera off. Of course, I'll keep mine on. I always delight seeing other faces, but feel free to turn off if you feel more comfortable. And so I'm just going to close my eyes real quick, and I suggest you do the same and just see from your head to your toes what sticks out to you right now. Could be anything. Oftentimes it's what's not so comfortable that stands out to us first. You might notice tension somewhere in our body. It could be our shoulders, our face, or our hips. Name a few that I'm feeling. You might feel some weird feelings inside our body. We can't exactly describe using words. Some trace emotional reactions to the poem or anything that I've shared so far. Sitting here for a moment in the confines of your body, defined by your skin. Sit here in your body and just take a moment to let any sounds that want to come to you, come to you. Doing more hearing than listening. More hearing, less listening. So based on these sounds, you have the sense of what's going on outside of your body. I invite you to just breathe in a normal, slightly deeper than normal breath. Breathe in a breath that feels pleasant, that feels good. And same on the exhale. Just breathe in a way that feels pleasant. Don't try too hard to look for the right breath. Normally your body knows if you turn a little bit of your breath over to your body. So you're sitting here within the confines of your body, hearing sounds, but not listening so much. Breathing pleasant breaths. And if they can't be pleasant, let them at least be gentle, and kind, or soothing. Hard to have awareness of our body if we're not a friend to our body. It's hard to be a friend to our body if we have no awareness of it. So here we are, taking one pleasant breath at a time. Carrying in this way for this form. See if you can't just let gravity pull you down a little bit more from the waist down. Sometimes I like to imagine that I'm growing a taproot through my tailbone. And it's just reaching down towards the center of the earth. And however you're sitting, you might notice, in addition to sitting on your butt, you're also probably putting some weight on your feet, or could be your shins or your knees. You have some other points of contact. You might even imagine for a moment that your shape, your form is like a mountain coming out of the ground, coming out of your chair, coming out of your seat. In fact, the chair and the seat itself is part of the mountain. It's what that does. Head to your toe. Still breathing in pleasant breaths. Still allowing sounds to meet your ear. We're sitting here just breathing pleasantly like a mountain. Now, within this mountain, see if you can bring your whole mind into your feet. Nothing in particular that you need to sense or feel. Just bring your mind there. Sometimes I imagine that my whole brain has slipped into some other part of my body. That helps. Bring your mind into your feet. Let it occupy your feet fully. And just sitting there with your mind in your feet, see what can be noticed. Maybe pins and needles or itches, maybe contact with your shoes or with the ground. Could be a feeling of hot or cold, dryness or moisture. Could be anything. Letting your mind rest there in your feet. And you might let your mind slide up into your lower legs, between your ankles and your knees. What happens if it occupies that space? What can be felt? I notice a little bit of muscle tension, heat, some slightly itchy feelings on my skin, contact with the ground, any of these things. And way more. Whatever authentically comes up for you. And as your mind gets pulled back to thoughts, nothing wrong at all with this. That's its natural state. Just breathe your mind back into your body with a pleasant breath. Inhaling to bring your mind back in, back down to wherever we're focusing on. You can come back to these pleasant breaths anytime you feel it would be supportive. Let our minds slide up to occupy our upper leg, or thigh, on both sides. Just see what's there. Feel any of these feelings you felt before, contact with the clothes or an object, heat, cool, itchy. You might even start to feel pulsing. You might feel other things that I'm not describing. It's one place I often feel blood sugar symptoms, especially those in these thighs. Just letting the mind rest, occupy the upper leg. And it gets distracted and pulled away, just breathing a pleasant breath to bring it back in. And move your attention up to your hip and pelvis area. And again, same process. You might feel contact with your seat. You might feel sensations that are difficult to name or put words to. You might feel anything. Just allowing your mind to occupy this region. Take it up fully. And see if it can be even softened a little bit. Allow the mind to take up more space. You might notice feelings changing. You don't have to chase any feelings. Just allow them to come and go. Same thing moving up into the lower torso. Let's say below the rib cage still. So me, my belly, my lower back. And sides of my lower torso. And allowing your mind to fully be part of, fully take up this area. Of the lower torso. Noticing things that can't be described easily, just as much as things that can be described. You might start noticing what you're feeling on your skin, and maybe the muscular layers just below, and seeing if you can be curious about any feelings coming from the deeper internal organs. just for fun, breathing some pleasant breaths into this lower belly area, where we hold so much tension, so much emotion, so much expectation, so many ideas of ourself and shoulds. Breathe some pleasant breaths into this lower belly. And we'll continue this process moving up to the upper torso, starting with your ribs and going all the way up to your shoulders. You don't need to feel like you're seeking out any sensation or feeling. And there's no right way to do this. Just letting your mind move throughout and fully take up this upper torso space. Breathe some pleasant breaths into your heart area. See if it can evoke some of your friendly, kind nature. Goes by many languages, many names in many languages. Agape, metta, mitra. Your heart to be warm. As much as it wants to get. And continuing this process from the fingertips all the way up your arms. Moving and letting your mind take up this space. Commune with this space. That feels complete. You can move into this neck and upper shoulders area. Again, just sitting there, resting the mind there. to speak through feelings, sensations. Just being a good listener. And from there, finally moving through the space in and around your head, allowing your mind to just take this space up. Leaving out no part of your head. The core for us to keep watch of this head area. Notice what happens when you breathe a pleasant breath into this head area. And try a few. As you feel ready, feel free to just sit without any agenda, as a body in a mountain shape, as a mountain in a body shape. Just feeling, just experiencing. Be a friend to your body without awareness of your body. It's hard to have awareness of your body if you're not a friend to it. The ocean can calm itself. So can you. A few final moments of practice. Enjoying. And as you feel ready, whether it's in one breath or 20 breaths, feel free to start a slow process of closing your meditation practice, coming back. Here comes the ending the recording sound.